The year 2025 wasn't about good seasons. It was about coronations. 7 men didn't just play the game. They seized control of the entire league. It began with a running back hunting down the legendary 2,000 scrimmage yard mark, a talent so profound you had to wonder if you were watching the single greatest player in the sport. Then, a force of nature on the defensive line, shattering an all-time sack record that had stood for nearly a quarter century, crowning 30-year-old Myles Garrett and a young quarterback who arrived ahead of schedule, rewriting the very timeline on greatness. This wasn't about steady progress. This was about sheer dominance, a hostile takeover. Our countdown begins with the silent assassin who became a sonic boom. Number 7, Bijan Robinson. The term breakout doesn't do justice to what happened in 2025. His takeover was a quiet storm, methodical, lethal, and then suddenly utterly overwhelming. Bijan is absolutely off the charts. He's off the charts. By the time the winter chill of late December set in, he had already stormed past the 2,000 scrimmage yard barrier, a feat only 2 other Falcons in history had ever accomplished. And with games left on the clock, the record books were bracing for more punishment. The evidence of his carnage is undeniable. Through 15 brutal contests, 250 carries, unleashing 1,250 yards of devastation on the ground, a staggering 5.0 yards every single time he touched the ball. Robinson at the 20, and he will go. The Falcons did it on the toss. It's Robinson. A couple of nice moves out across the 45 and still going. He was a ghost in the backfield and a nightmare in the passing game, collecting yards like a premier wideout and crossing the goal line from anywhere by any means necessary. But the moment the league knew something had fundamentally shifted came early on, when Atlanta stopped running an offense and simply started activating its cheat code. Take that Sunday night showdown against Minnesota. Running left through a tackle, Robinson accelerating, and there goes Robinson. The advanced metrics told a story of pure will. 9 shattered tackles and 50 extra yards carved out of thin air, all by himself. That isn't born from a playbook, that's born from a refusal to be brought down. It is the byproduct of sheer panic, the dawning horror on a defender's face as he realizes he's already a step behind and a moment too late. Then came the Week 16 pilgrimage to Arizona, to a stadium that had been a graveyard for Atlanta for over 2 decades. The Falcons exorcised the ghosts of 2001, and Bijan was the one who made damn sure it felt like destiny, not luck. And he'll drop it off. Catch and run for Robinson. What balance? That is an outrageous run. 76 yards on the ground, 92 through the air, and a receiving touchdown that tilted the scales on a night decided by inches. This is the anatomy of a defender's worst nightmare. You don't game plan for him on first down. You game plan for him on every single snap. The second Bijan steps onto the field, your entire defensive philosophy crumbles. Coverage schemes are thrown into chaos, run assignments become suggestions, and your linebackers freeze, paralyzed by the knowledge that a single misstep is a 6-point mistake. That is the definition of a takeover in 2025. Number 6, George Pickens. Before the 2025 season, when Dallas rolled the dice on George Pickens, the city wasn't buzzing with excitement. It was thick with skepticism. So, I'm giving it a B. I got more to say. I'm giving it a B because I think it's great on paper, but there's a lot of questions. I think that George Pickens is one of the more overrated players in the whole league. Dallas heard the noise, they absorbed the doubt, then they simply handed him a helmet and unleashed him opposite CeeDee Lamb. From the opening kickoff of Week 1, the strategy was brutally simple. Pickens wasn't acquired to be a supporting actor. He was there to tear the top off the defense until it broke. George Pickens with a ball in hand, then a hurdle. When the dust settled on the season, the statistics had silenced every doubter. 88 catches, 1,342 receiving yards, third best in the entire NFL. 9 trips to the end zone, a punishing 15.3 yards per reception. That average tells the true tale of his dominance. Pickens wasn't just moving the chains, he was detonating explosives downfield. George Pickens has been everything that Jerry and the Cowboys had hoped for when they traded for him 6 months ago. He ranked second in the NFL in receiving yards. He cracked the top 5 in explosive play generation, earned a formidable 87.0 PFF grade, 6th among all wide receivers, and weaponized his targets with a ruthless efficiency few could match. But the true narrative shift, the moment the league was forced to see him differently, was a brutal stretch in October. It began in Week 6 against Carolina. Quick slant, Pickens breaks free. George Pickens, touchdown, Dallas. 168 yards and a score, built on a foundation of broken tackles and demoralizing contested catches ripped from the hands of defenders who were powerless to stop him. Then came Week 11 in Las Vegas. Pickens, good move. Nice cut back and a touchdown. Another 144 yards, one score. Followed by the crucible of Week 12 against Philadelphia. Prescott looking to throw. Corner, touchdown, Pickens. 146 more yards, another touchdown. 3 games, 3 separate defensive schemes, one singular, devastating result. His presence was felt on every blade of grass. Consider this. The season before Pickens arrived, Dallas managed a mere 7 pass plays that covered 40 or more yards. In 2025, Pickens nearly matched that total all by himself, with 4. He single-handedly transformed the Cowboys from a one-dimensional machine into a high-octane, multi-year assault, blowing open running lanes and creating a vast expanse for the underneath routes to thrive. And so the trade that was born in doubt now presents a new kind of crisis. A financial one. Pickens is playing on an expiring deal, and a season of this magnitude doesn't come with a discount. A 1,300-yard deep threat, just now entering the zenith of his powers, commands a king's ransom, the kind of contract that forces championship rosters to make impossible choices. Dallas accepted the gamble. They weathered the storm of criticism. And in 2025, George Pickens proved to the world the trade was never a risk. It was a heist. Number 5. Puka Nacua. By mid-October of the 2025 season, all arguments in Los Angeles had ceased. When the Rams desperately needed a play, there was only one number to call. Their offense goes through Puka Nacua. I mean, everything that they do, they move him around. Sean McVay didn't just scheme plays for him, he architected the entire offense around him, handing Nacua the keys to the kingdom by casting him in the Cooper Kupp role and then expanding its borders. Puka was a constant presence. On the field for nearly every down, a target on every conceivable route, and the focal point in every critical situation. The result was nothing short of legendary. When the final whistle blew, Nacua stood alone atop the NFL, leading all players with 114 receptions. He finished second in the league with a staggering 1,592 receiving yards and tacked on 8 touchdowns, all while gobbling up a massive 14 yards per catch. The ball found him constantly. Only one player in the entire league was targeted more, and when he secured it, he became a force of nature, chewing up a staggering 502 yards after the catch, a number that placed him among the top 3 receivers in football. This wasn't just empty volume. This was sheer, unadulterated dominance. The moment the league realized something truly absurd was happening arrived late in the season, a brutal stretch where Nacua made elite defenses look like helpless onlookers. It began in Week 14, on the road in Arizona. With the game on the line, you could hear the broadcast echo the inevitable. On second down, Stafford sets throws caught into the end zone. He torched them for 167 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Then came Week 15, against Detroit. Once more, the call painted the picture of his relentless assault. Again, Stafford rifles it near side. Nacua, great catch, and it's a first down for Puka. The final tally, another 181 yards, 2 more scores. The carnage continued in Week 16 in Seattle, the announcers barely keeping up, Stafford fires, Nacua again. Nacua will take it to the end zone. The stat line was monstrous, 12 receptions, 225 yards, and 2 touchdowns, single-handedly willing the Rams through a heart-stopping overtime victory. With 9 games eclipsing 80 yards and more 100-yard performances than any other receiver in the game, a new standard was being set. By the season's midway point, the national media had caught on. Sports Illustrated declared him on the precipice of legend, pointing out the undeniable fact that he commanded the league lead in both catches and total yards. Then the whispers began quietly at first, then growing louder murmurs of a pursuit once thought impossible in the modern era, a run at the receiving Triple Crown. The narrative crystallized into a stunning possibility. Puka Nacua, against all odds, was in the hunt to become that year's Triple Crown champion. No one saw the ball more. When he was on the field, no receiver was more efficient, generating more yards for every single route he ran. At just 24 years of age, he was a more potent physical force, his technique razor sharp, his every move radiating an unshakable self-belief. It's the kind of swagger born from knowing a life-changing contract is on the horizon and the entire offense already revolves around you. Even as defenses keyed in on other stars near the goal line, it was Nacua who made the plays that settled contests. When he caught fire, the Rams didn't just win, they left their opponents in the dust. And if a defense dared to commit its resources to shutting him down, the rest of the field became a playground for his teammates. Neutralizing him wasn't a matter of luck. It demanded a total, game-altering pledge of manpower. In 2025, Puka Nacua transcended mere production. He was knocking on the door of immortality, on the verge of joining the pantheon of Rams legends. Number 4, Jonathan Taylor. For a blistering period in the heart of the 2025 season, his story wasn't about a return to form, it was about a legitimate run for most valuable player. The sentiment echoed across sports talk. I'm just gonna say it. He should be number 1 in the MVP race right now. Before a plague of injuries tore the heart out of the Colts roster and shattered their season's momentum, Jonathan Taylor was accomplishing a feat that felt nearly mythical in the modern game. He was single-handedly dragging his team to victory with such brute force that the league was forced to ask a question it had long since dismissed. Could a running back truly claim the award again? And it was no fantasy. The numbers were undeniable. He has a combined almost 1,400 yards and 17 touchdowns on the year. He resurrected the Colts' hopes through the simplest of strategies: just give him the damn ball. Taylor evolved into the gravitational center of the entire Indianapolis offense. A genuine throwback, a true bell cow back in an era that had declared them extinct. The Colts committed fully, placing the ball in his hands 288 times more than any other rusher in the league, and architecting their entire attack around his power to dictate the terms of engagement. The output was simply staggering: 1,489 yards on the ground. That ranked him second in the NFL. His 288 carries led the league. He averaged 5.2 yards every time he touched it and crossed the goal line for 17 rushing touchdowns, more than anyone else in football. But he was far from one-dimensional. Taylor was a complete weapon, hauling in 41 receptions for 351 yards and 2 additional scores, proving he was a threat on every single down. His signature performance, the one that silenced all doubt, unfolded in Week 11 against Atlanta. The broadcast captured the raw explosion. Jonathan Taylor, big run, there he goes. And Indianapolis takes the lead. The final damage: 32 carries, a mind-boggling 244 yards, and 3 trips to the end zone. It was an overtime victory fueled almost exclusively by the sheer force of Taylor's will. There was no deception, no sleight of hand, just a relentless barrage of carries until the Atlanta defense was physically broken. That performance was more than a highlight. It was a declaration. It was a terrifying reminder of what a completely unshackled Jonathan Taylor was capable of. And it was no fluke. He had already eviscerated the Denver defense for 165 yards earlier in the season. The play-by-play told a story of desperation. Taylor on the move. He's chased by Certain and Singleton, and he's out of bounds because of the injury timeout inside 2 minutes. It's Taylor. Touchdown! The onslaught continued against Tennessee, where he racked up 153 yards and 2 more scores. The call became a familiar refrain: run it with Taylor again, JT to the outside. JT! Touchdown! A string of 150-plus yard games became the norm. At the season's midpoint, Taylor was the undisputed king among running backs, pacing the league in yards, scoring at a ludicrous pace, and reigning supreme in fantasy football as the overall RB1. Pundits were forced to dust off old tapes, drawing parallels to his legendary 2020 and 2021 campaigns, the last time anyone had witnessed such utter dominance. But the difference in 2025 was glaring. He was finally healthy, his offensive line had been fortified, and the results spoke for themselves. Cutting through the noise, we can say what we want to say. Jonathan Taylor has been the bedrock of that Colts offense. At 26 years old, acutely aware that his window for a colossal contract was closing, Taylor ran with a palpable fury. He was decisive, punishing, and utterly relentless. And even when the team's widespread injuries ultimately derailed their playoff hopes and quieted the MVP talk, Taylor's profound influence never waned. When Indianapolis managed a victory, it was because he had seized control of the clock, the game's rhythm, and the team's very soul. He physically dismantled opposing wills. In 2025, Jonathan Taylor did not simply get back to his old self. He issued a chilling reminder to the entire league of the terrifying power of a true workhorse back, proving why, before the walls caved in around him, his name belongs squarely in the MVP conversation. Number 3, Jackson Smith-Njigba. By the midway point of the season, the discourse surrounding Jackson Smith-Njigba had accelerated into territory no one thought possible, at least not this soon. The question was no longer if times he was having a breakout year. The question became whether he was on pace to hunt down Calvin Johnson's mythical single-season receiving record. Can JSN shatter Megatron's all-time mark this year? That was the new reality. That is just how completely insane the 2025 season became in Seattle. With a new offensive mind at the helm, the Seahawks didn't merely make JSN a focal point, they handed him the keys to the entire kingdom. If a play existed to get the ball into his hands, Seattle ran it. And any defense that tried to anticipate their next move was almost invariably left guessing wrong, a step behind his brilliance. When the dust settled on the season, the statistics were simply breathtaking. 104 catches for 1,637 yards, the highest mark in the entire National Football League. 10 touchdowns, 15.7 yards per grab. This was beyond production. It was brutal efficiency, a violent command of every open space. It wasn't just that he was creating game-breaking plays in nearly every appearance, it was that he was delivering multiple of them. Smith-Njigba finished with 502 yards after the catch, third best in all of football, and dominated the league in receiving yards on throws of 10-plus air yards with an absurd 1,115. When the ball went deep, he didn't just secure it. He flipped the entire field. The first warning shots were fired early. Week 1, against San Francisco. Darnold, 1-on-1. Smith, 124 yards. A casual announcement that year 2 was going to be a different story. Week 5 versus Tampa Bay. Levis with a laser. Touchdown. A beautiful fake to Walker. Look at the time he has. Going deep. And he's got him. Smith-Njigba, 132 yards. Then, week 6 at Jacksonville, and Smith-Njigba has it. Touchdown Seahawks. 162 yards, but the moment his arrival became undeniable was week 11 in Tennessee. Going up top for Jackson Smith-Njigba. Drops it in the bucket. Darnold on first. Down, flushed from the pocket. Finds Smith-Njigba for another colossal play. 8 catches, 167 yards, 2 touchdowns. 2 devastating scores that shattered the rules of coverage and ended all debate about who this Seattle offense ran through. From that point on, defenses warped their entire scheme, bracketing him, rolling coverage his way, and being forced to live with the devastating consequences everywhere else. With DK Metcalf gone, Smith-Njigba didn't just step up, he seized the throne, embracing the role of a true number 1 and looking completely at home, demanding the football. His chemistry with Sam Darnold became absolutely surgical. Darnold on the move. Darnold throws, and he's got his man. Touchdown. Seattle saw that confidence and leaned right into it. They engineered quick touches to unleash his yards after catch ability, motioned him to diagnose coverages, and put the game in his hands on third downs and in clutch situations. When opponents overcommitted to stopping him, the Seahawks punished them elsewhere, and when they didn't, JSN punished them himself. By December, the Megatron talk only subsided because historical records are a cruel standard. But the message was delivered. In 2025, Jackson Smith-Njigba didn't just emerge. He announced his arrival as Seattle's superstar and one of the most dangerous weapons in all of football. Number 2, Myles Garrett. It finally happened. First down. Burrow. He's under duress. He's sacked. And there it is. A record that has stood for nearly a quarter century is broken. With his 23rd sack, Myles Garrett did more than just win a matchup or a game. He broke the NFL single-season sack record. And somehow, that number still doesn't do justice to what 2025 truly looked like. I think if you were to ask any football fan, Myles Garrett is a first-ballot Hall of Famer. He will be a first-ballot Hall of Famer. From week 1 forward, offenses treated Garrett like a natural disaster. Sliding protections toward him, chipping him with tight ends, keeping backs in to block. Jim Schwartz admitted it without hesitation. Garrett was double-teamed on roughly 30% of his pass rush snaps, sometimes even drawing a third blocker. It didn't matter. Garrett concluded the season with 23 sacks, the most in league history, despite almost never getting a clean one-on-one look. The moment of total takeover came in the middle of the season, the stretch that turned a great year into an historic one. He might just be the best player in football, and it may not be that close. That's how well Myles Garrett is playing right now. Week 11 against Baltimore. Garrett detonated the game with 4 sacks, utterly destroying protection schemes that knew exactly where he was lining up every single play. Lamar rolling right, trying to come back the other way, and Myles Garrett is there. Lamar, pressure is coming. And he's sacked again by Myles Garrett. Earlier in the season, he had already posted a 5-sack performance, becoming the first player since 2019 to record multiple 4+ sack games in the same season. By then, the question wasn't if times he'd break the record, it was times when asterisk. What makes Garrett so different at this stage of his career is refinement. At 29 years old, he's at his physical apex, but the truly terrifying growth is mental. His counters are cleaner, his timing is cruel, and Cleveland built its entire world around him. There is no Cleveland Browns without Myles Garrett. He is an unstoppable force. The Browns rebuilt their defensive front just to complement his gravitational pull. They knew Garrett would command all the attention, freeing up everyone else. Even when the offense sputtered, the defense held the line because Garrett refused to let opposing drives breathe. That's his real impact. Quarterbacks stopped climbing the pocket. Entire game plans began to shrink. Garrett didn't just rack up sacks, he controlled behavior. The record matters. The number will live forever, but 2025 will be remembered for something more. I think Myles Garrett is probably the best player in the league right now. This was the season Myles Garrett stopped being discussed as one of the most dominant defenders in football and started being talked about in the pantheon of the all-time greats. Number 1, Drake May. By the end of the 2025 season, the debate was over. Drake May wasn't just the best young quarterback in football, he was the most valuable player. So who's your MVP right now? It's gotta be Drake May. It has to be Drake May. And the wildest part? Almost nobody saw this coming. Back in September, the Patriots were supposed to be a team in full rebuild, searching for direction under a new coach, breaking in a first-year starter, and just hoping to look functional by December. Instead, they found their future. Immediately, new head coach Mike Vrabel didn't protect Maye. He unleashed him. There's nobody else that we want as our quarterback, or that I want as our quarterback. The offense opened up, leaned into a vertical attack, and ran straight through the 23-year-old quarterback. New England let him throw, let him move, let him take complete control in ways the previous regime never did. The workload alone tells the story. There are a mountain of metrics all pointing to how Drake May is the MVP of this league decisively. He has been remarkable. No quarterback faced more pressure, with May shouldering a league-high 453 dropbacks. He unleashed 3,947 yards, a total that ranked 4th in all of football, firing 25 touchdowns against a mere 8 picks with a stunning 70.9% completion rate. His 108.5 passer rating was a number that placed him in rarefied air. And then he'd beat you with his legs. 95 rushes for 387 yards and another 4 scores. Every one of those runs was by design. The entire narrative in 2025 changed with a single word: freedom. But the one element that defines Drake May's game for me, when you see him on the field, is his innate ability to elevate everyone around him. The offensive line underwent a seismic transformation, vaulting into the top 7 in pass blocking efficiency and giving May a pocket he had only ever dreamed of. With Vrabel and Josh McDaniels dialing up relentless, aggressive schemes, the Patriots unleashed their quarterback instead of protecting him, building the entire system to his strengths. The declaration of his arrival was not a whisper, it was a thunderclap. Week 5. The opponent? New Orleans. May, back to pass, launches one deep for the end zone, and it's hauled in. With that, May delivered the first legendary chapter of a new dynasty. 261 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 140.1 passer rating that tied the franchise record. This wasn't just execution, it was utter domination. From that moment forward, the league was on notice and Drake May just kept coming. Defenses threw the kitchen sink at him with blitz after blitz. He made them pay every single time. Against the rush, he led all quarterbacks with 1,085 passing yards and 9 touchdowns, posting god-tier numbers when opponents tried to rattle him. His yards per attempt while under duress stood among the giants of the game. The analytics screamed his name, the game film confirmed his greatness, and the victories began to pile up. A 5-game winning streak, that's a feat they haven't accomplished since 2021, clutch game-winning drives, fourth-quarter heroics, grueling victories on enemy soil. New England was no longer just a tough out. They were a nightmare. For the first time in an age, opposing coordinators were forced to fear the Patriots again. And that is the detail that eclipses everything else. This ascent wasn't supposed to be this meteoric. Doubters had questioned if May was even ready. They picked apart the roster. They openly wondered if the New England franchise had lost its way entirely. By the time December rolled around, those questions had been silenced. Drake May is the MVP. The things we've witnessed in just the last 2 games, I believe that seals it. The Patriots hadn't just found a new signal caller. They had found redemption. And at the heart of it all stood a quarterback who played with an unshakable swagger, empowered by his coaches, carrying the crushing weight of a historic organization on his back, and making it look like second nature. In 2025, Drake May did not simply surpass expectations. He reduced them to dust. He is without a doubt your most valuable player. And in New England, an entire region rediscovered a feeling it thought was lost forever. A future they could finally believe in. 7 athletes, 7 hostile takeovers, 1 singular season that turned the NFL upside down. This isn't a list built on potential. It's built on the Warriors who seized 2025 and made it their own. And now, the floor is yours. Unleash your take in the comments, tell us if we nailed this list, and if there's a beast we overlooked who owned this season, make your case loud and clear below. And for those of you who stayed for the entire ride, hit subscribe on Strip Sack. I'll know who the real ones are. Catch you on the next one.